Have you ever found yourself lying in bed at night, replaying conversations in your head, thinking about what you could have said differently, or worrying about someone who doesn't even seem to care as much as you do? Why do we let our minds get stuck in endless loops of overthinking? And most importantly, how do we break free from this cycle? Here's a simple example. Imagine you're holding a glass of water. At first, it feels light and easy to hold. But the longer you hold on to it, the heavier it feels, right? Overthinking is just like that glass of water. It gets heavier the longer you hold on to it. The solution? Put it down. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, where we unravel life's complexities through timeless insights. If you're ready to let go of unnecessary thoughts and reclaim your peace of mind, this video is for you. But before we dive deeper, let me remind you, there are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of viewers subscribe. So please, like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us create more valuable content just like this. In this video, we'll explore the transformative power of letting go and how Buddhist teachings can guide us toward a calmer, more focused life. Overthinking about someone doesn't change them. It only drains your energy. Buddhism emphasizes the impermanence of everything around us. That person you're thinking about, they're just a part of the ever-changing flow of life. Clinging to thoughts about them only creates suffering. But why do we think so much about people in the first place? It's often because we attach our happiness to them. We believe their actions, words, or opinions define our worth. Buddhism challenges this belief, teaching us that true happiness comes from within, not from others. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into the roots of attachment and how it leads to overthinking. But for now, take a deep breath and remind yourself, life is too short to carry the weight of unnecessary thoughts. Understanding attachment, roots of overthinking. Have you ever noticed how a simple thought can grow into a tangled mess of worries? One small idea, one small interaction, and suddenly you're lost in a whirlwind of what-ifs and could-haves. But why does this happen? Why do we overthink about the smallest things? The answer lies in attachment. At the core of overthinking is attachment. We often think about people or situations because we're attached to the idea of them. We want things to be a certain way, or we hope others will behave according to our expectations. When they don't, we feel upset, disappointed, or worried. This attachment to outcomes, people, or even our own thoughts creates a constant cycle of mental stress. In Buddhism, attachment is seen as the root cause of suffering. It's not just about material things. Attachment can also be to ideas, beliefs, emotions, or even relationships. We become attached to the idea of how things should be, rather than accepting them as they are. When life doesn't meet our expectations, we experience inner turmoil. And this turmoil often leads to overthinking. Think of it this way. Imagine you're holding tightly to a rope, and the rope represents your attachment to a thought or person. The tighter you hold onto the rope, the more it starts to hurt your hands. But if you loosen your grip, you release the tension and the pain. Letting go isn't about ignoring your feelings or pretending something doesn't matter. It's about recognizing that holding on too tightly only causes suffering. Overthinking is often the result of holding on to the past or trying to control the future. You think about a past conversation, replaying it over and over, wondering if you said the right thing or if someone misunderstood you. Or you worry about what might happen tomorrow, trying to predict every possible outcome. Both of these are forms of attachment. We hold on to the past and we try to control the future, but both are beyond our control. In Buddhism, there's a term called anatta, which means not self. It teaches us that we are not defined by our thoughts, our emotions, or our attachments. They are temporary, like clouds passing through the sky. We are not our worries or our past mistakes. When we start to understand this, we begin to free ourselves from the grip of attachment. So, how can we break this cycle of attachment and overthinking? The first step is awareness. The next time you find yourself overthinking about someone or something, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what am I attached to in this situation? What outcome am I trying to control? Once you become aware of your attachment, the next step is to practice letting go. This doesn't mean ignoring your thoughts or pushing them away. Instead, it means observing them without getting caught up in them. Imagine your thoughts as clouds passing across the sky. They come, they go, but they do not define you. This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness is the practice of being present in the moment without judgment. When we practice mindfulness, we start to detach from the constant stream of thoughts that pull us in different directions. We begin to realize that our thoughts are not who we are. They are just temporary mental events that come and go. But even with mindfulness, letting go is not always easy. It takes time and patience. We've spent years, maybe even decades, attaching ourselves to people, ideas, and outcomes. It's no wonder that letting go can feel like a challenge. But with practice, it becomes easier. The key is to start small. Start by letting go of the small things. When someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of getting angry and holding on to that anger, let it go. When a friend says something that hurts your feelings, instead of dwelling on it, release it. One powerful technique in Buddhism is the practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation. This practice involves silently repeating phrases like, "May I be happy," "May I be peaceful," "May I be free from suffering," and then expanding that wish to others. Start with yourself, then extend your loving-kindness to your family, your friends, and even people you may have conflicts with. As you do this, you begin to realize that you are not defined by your attachments to others. Your peace comes from within. Another important aspect of understanding attachment is recognizing that everything in life is impermanent. The person you are worried about today, the situation that's causing you stress, will all change over time. Nothing is permanent. The Buddha taught that attachment to anything, even our own thoughts, causes suffering because we cling to things that are temporary. When we let go and accept the impermanence of life, we free ourselves from the burden of overthinking. In the next part, we'll explore how mindfulness and meditation can help us break free from overthinking and find peace. But for now, take a moment to reflect on the attachments that might be causing you stress. What are you holding on to too tightly? Can you begin to loosen your grip and allow your mind to find some rest? Remember, the path to inner peace doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, patience, and practice. But every small step you take towards letting go is a step towards a calmer, more peaceful mind. And as you let go of your attachments, you will find that you no longer need to overthink about others or situations. You'll be able to live in the present, free from the grip of your thoughts. Stay with us as we continue to explore how to break free from the chains of attachment and overthinking and move towards a life of inner peace and freedom. The Buddhist perspective on thoughts. Have you ever wondered why your thoughts seem to endlessly repeat themselves, especially when it comes to certain people or situations? You might even catch yourself thinking about something from weeks ago, over and over again. Thoughts can feel like waves, constantly crashing, sometimes overwhelming, other times gentle. But no matter what kind of thoughts you're experiencing, there's a simple truth you must understand. Thoughts are just thoughts. They are not you. They do not define you. In Buddhism, the nature of thoughts is explored deeply. The Buddha taught that our minds are like a garden. If you plant a seed, it will grow into a plant. But what kind of seed are you planting? Are you planting seeds of attachment, worry, and desire? Or are you planting seeds of peace, clarity, and wisdom? The choice is always yours, but first, you must understand the nature of these seeds, the nature of your thoughts. When the Buddha taught about the nature of the mind, he didn't tell people to suppress or forcefully change their thoughts. Instead, he encouraged people to observe them, just like an outsider observing clouds in the sky. Thoughts come and go, but they do not stay. And just as the clouds eventually pass, so too will the storm of thoughts in your mind. Now, you might be thinking, but how can I stop thinking about this person or this situation? I can't just make the thoughts go away. This is a very common challenge. We often think that to stop overthinking, we need to control or eliminate our thoughts entirely. However, Buddhism teaches us that trying to control our thoughts only leads to more resistance and frustration. The key is to shift your relationship with them. Imagine standing by a river, watching the water flow. The river doesn't stop flowing. It just moves along, naturally. If you try to grab the water and hold it still, you'll only tire yourself out. The water will continue to flow regardless. In the same way, your thoughts flow through your mind. Some are calm, some are turbulent, but they do not need to be controlled. Instead, You can practice letting them flow without getting stuck in them. Buddhism teaches us to develop mindfulness, the ability to be fully present with whatever is happening in our mind and body, without judgment. This is not an easy task. Most of us are so used to identifying with our thoughts that we believe they are who we are. But when we develop mindfulness, we begin to see our thoughts as separate from ourselves. Let me give you an example. Think of a TV screen. The images on the screen change, but the screen itself stays the same. The screen isn't affected by what appears on it. Similarly, your mind is the screen, and your thoughts are like the images. You don't need to get caught up in every image that flashes by. You can simply observe them and let them pass. The more you practice this, the less you'll be affected by your thoughts. One of the core Buddhist teachings is the idea of non-attachment. This doesn't mean that you should stop caring about others or abandon your responsibilities. It simply means that you don't hold on to your thoughts, your emotions, or the things of this world too tightly. Attachment is what causes suffering. When you cling to a thought, whether it's about someone, a past event, or an outcome you desire, you're only inviting stress and pain into your life. Buddhism teaches us that attachment to our thoughts creates a cycle of craving and aversion. When we think about something pleasant, we want it more. When we think about something unpleasant, we want to push it away. This cycle never ends until we break it, and the first step in breaking it is to realize that your thoughts are not yours to own. They are simply phenomena that arise and pass. It's like a cloud in the sky. You can't keep the cloud from forming, but you can choose not to chase it. You can simply let it be and watch it drift away. Similarly, when you feel the urge to obsess over something or someone, remember that this is just a cloud passing through your mind. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to hold on to it. Just let it be. In Buddhist practice, this is where meditation plays an important role. Meditation is a tool to train the mind, helping us to observe our thoughts without getting entangled in them. By practicing meditation regularly, you build the skill to witness your thoughts rather than react to them. With time, this leads to greater inner peace and mental clarity. Now, you might be thinking, that sounds nice in theory, but in practice, it's hard. And you're right. The path to freeing yourself from overthinking is not an overnight journey. It takes time, patience, and consistent effort. But with every meditation session, with every moment of awareness, you're creating the conditions for your mind to become clearer and more peaceful. Buddhism also teaches us the concept of emptiness. This means that nothing in the world has inherent, permanent meaning. Things only have meaning because we assign it to them. The thoughts you have about a person, a situation, or yourself are all temporary. They don't have to control your life. When you begin to see thoughts as empty of permanent meaning, you'll begin to experience freedom. One of the most liberating realizations in Buddhism is that you don't need to overthink in order to be wise. Wisdom comes from clarity, and clarity comes from stillness. When your mind is calm, you can see things as they truly are, without the distortion of overthinking or attachment. This doesn't mean that you should shut off your mind or avoid thinking altogether. Rather, it means cultivating the ability to choose which thoughts to engage with and which to let go of. You become the master of your mind, not the servant of your thoughts. To understand this better, let's consider the analogy of a busy marketplace. In the marketplace, there are many voices shouting for your attention. Some are loud, some are soft, but they're all just noise. If you try to listen to every voice, you'll feel overwhelmed. But if you step back and observe the marketplace from a distance, you'll realize that you don't need to engage with every voice. You can choose the ones that are important to you and ignore the rest. Your mind is like that marketplace. There are many thoughts, some helpful, some distracting, but you don't have to give attention to every thought that arises. With mindfulness, you can step back and choose which thoughts to engage with. And this is where true peace begins. Over time, you'll find that the less you identify with your thoughts, the more you'll experience a profound sense of freedom. You'll realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes them. And when you know this, you will no longer be bound by the endless cycle of overthinking. Buddhism is not about controlling the mind or eliminating thoughts. It's about recognizing the impermanence of everything, including your thoughts, and learning to let go. When you embrace this perspective, you'll find that overthinking no longer holds power over you. Instead of being swept away by the waves of your mind, you'll learn to surf them with grace and ease. So, the next time you catch yourself overthinking, remember, thoughts are just thoughts. You don't have to hold on to them. They're like clouds passing through your sky. Let them come, let them go, and in the space between, you will find peace. Mindfulness. Living in the present moment. Do you ever find yourself worrying about what happened in the past, or what might happen in the future? These thoughts, these worries, they pull you away from the only moment that truly matters, the present moment. In the hustle and bustle of daily life, it's easy to forget that the present is all we truly have. But how do we stop the endless cycle of overthinking and start living in the now? This is where mindfulness comes in. Mindfulness, at its core, is the practice of being fully present in whatever you're doing. It means giving your complete attention to the task at hand, without judgment, without worrying about the past or the future. When you practice mindfulness, you step away from the constant chatter of your mind and experience life as it is, in its purest form. Buddhism teaches us that the mind often acts like a monkey, jumping from one thought to another, never staying still. We can never truly find peace if our minds are always swinging from past regrets to future fears. Mindfulness is the tool we use to tame the monkey, to calm the restless mind and bring it back to the present. The beauty of mindfulness is that it can be practiced at any moment, no matter where you are or what you're doing. Imagine this. You're eating a meal, and instead of thinking about everything else you have to do, you focus on the taste, the texture, the smell of the food. You feel the sensation of each bite as it enters your mouth. In that moment, you are fully immersed in the present, and for that moment, you are free from the burdens of the past and the future. When we practice mindfulness, we begin to notice that many of our worries are not rooted in reality. They're just thoughts, often exaggerated or distorted, that we hold on to without even realizing it. By paying attention to the present moment, we learn to see things clearly, as they truly are, without the filter of our past experiences or future fears. We start to let go of the need to control everything and allow life to unfold as it will. Now, let's think about the power of breathing. In Buddhist teachings, the breath is considered a doorway to mindfulness. The act of breathing itself is simple, yet it's something we can always rely on to bring us back to the present. When you focus on your breath, you anchor yourself in the here and now. You can be anywhere, at work, on a walk, or even in a tense situation. And simply by bringing your attention to your breath, you can create a sense of calm and presence. But mindfulness isn't just about focusing on your breath. It's also about embracing each moment with openness and acceptance. It's about being aware of your thoughts and emotions without judging them. If you're feeling anxious, for example, instead of fighting or ignoring that feeling, mindfulness encourages you to simply notice it. You acknowledge the emotion, sit with it for a moment, and then let it pass. You don't let it define you or control you. You simply observe it, like a cloud passing by in the sky. Living in the present moment doesn't mean you stop planning for the future or reflecting on the past. It simply means you stop letting those thoughts dominate your life. You stop worrying about the what-ifs and the should-haves. You stop letting the past mistakes or future fears steal your joy in the present. When we are mindful, we realize that the present moment is where life actually happens. It's where we experience happiness, peace, and connection. Take a moment right now and pause. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and focus on your breath as it enters and exits your body. Notice how the air feels as it moves in and out. Don't judge the breath, don't try to change it, just observe it. With each breath, allow yourself to feel more grounded, more at peace. This is the power of mindfulness. It brings you back to yourself and to the present moment. The beauty of mindfulness is that it doesn't require special skills or knowledge. It's not something you have to learn in a classroom or read about in a book. It's something you can start practicing right now, in the middle of your everyday life. Whether you're walking, eating, talking, or simply sitting quietly, you can bring mindfulness into everything you do. It's important to remember that mindfulness isn't about achieving some perfect state of peace. It's about being present with whatever is happening right now, even if it's uncomfortable or difficult. Sometimes, mindfulness brings up emotions or thoughts that we'd rather avoid. but by accepting them and being present with them, we allow ourselves to heal and grow. Over time, mindfulness helps us cultivate a deeper sense of self-awareness, inner peace, and compassion. As you continue to practice mindfulness, you'll begin to notice how much of your mental energy has been consumed by thoughts of the past and future. You'll realize that the more you stay in the present, the less time and energy you spend worrying. And the more you let go of overthinking, the more freedom you'll feel. This is the key to living a life free from unnecessary mental clutter, and it's something you can achieve with patience and practice. Mindfulness also plays a vital role in how we relate to others. When we're mindful, we become better listeners, more empathetic, and more patient. Instead of getting lost in our own thoughts when someone is speaking, we can fully engage with them in the present moment. We can understand their emotions, respond thoughtfully, and offer compassion without being distracted by our own worries. In relationships, this is priceless. By staying present with others, we deepen our connections and foster understanding and trust. Living in the present moment also means embracing the impermanence of life. Everything changes: our thoughts, our emotions, the people around us, the situations we face. Nothing stays the same forever. When we can accept that change is a natural part of life, we stop holding on so tightly to things and people. We learn to enjoy life as it is, without the need for it to be any different. As we conclude this part, take a moment to reflect on your own relationship with the present moment. How often do you catch yourself thinking about the past or the future? How often do you find your mind wandering away from what's happening right in front of you? With mindfulness, you can change this. The key is to practice. Start small, but be consistent. And remember, every moment is an opportunity to be present. Every breath is a chance to return to the now. Impermanence, the key to inner peace. Life is in constant motion. You wake up in the morning, the sun rises. By evening, it sets. The wind blows, the seasons change, and nothing ever stays the same. This is the truth of impermanence. The Buddhist teachings are clear on this. Nothing in life lasts forever, and this includes your thoughts, your feelings, and even your relationships. Think about a river for a moment. When you look at it, you'll never see the same water twice. Each moment in the river is unique, flowing and changing. In much the same way, your thoughts and feelings flow continuously. The key is to understand that just like the river, they will pass. No feeling, no thought, no worry is permanent. Now, how does this relate to overthinking and letting go of attachments? Often, we hold on to the idea that things, or people, must stay the same forever. We expect our relationships, our jobs, our successes, and even our emotions to be unchanging. But the truth is, everything is in constant flux. When we hold on to something, trying to make it last longer than it is meant to, we create suffering. The fear of change and loss makes us overthink and cling to what's passing. Take a moment and think about a challenging time in your life. At that moment, it may have felt like it was the end of the world. You may have thought that you would never get through it. But now, looking back, you realize that it passed. It was difficult, yes, but it didn't last forever. This is the nature of impermanence. Everything is temporary. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from our resistance to change. When we resist the flow of life, we create conflict within ourselves. We want things to stay the same, but the more we try to hold on, the more we struggle. The secret to inner peace is acceptance. Accept that everything, even the difficult moments, will eventually pass. Nothing stays the same, and this realization helps us let go of our attachment to things and people. Think about how this applies to overthinking. When you catch yourself replaying a conversation or worrying about someone, remember that this moment, these thoughts, will pass. The more you try to force them to stay or try to control the outcome, the more power you give them over your peace. But when you let them go, they flow away just like water down the river. In Buddhism, this understanding of impermanence is called anicca. It's one of the 3 marks of existence, the fundamental truths about life. Everything in this world is in a constant state of change. Your body, your thoughts, the people around you. When you begin to truly understand that everything is impermanent, you stop clinging to what is fleeting. This is when you start to experience peace. When you stop trying to make things last, when you stop overthinking and holding on to attachments, you free yourself. The Buddha said, "Do not dwell on the past, do not dream of the future, concentrate the mind on the present moment." The past is gone, the future has not yet arrived, and all we have is now. The more we hold on to the past or worry about the future, the more we suffer. But the present moment is all we really need. The power of impermanence is in its simplicity. When you realize that things are always changing, you stop resisting, you stop struggling, you start to live more fully in the present moment, appreciating things as they are. You let go of the desire for things to stay the same, and you embrace the beauty of change. Imagine you're holding a piece of ice in your hand. At first, it feels cold, but over time, it begins to melt. The more you hold on to it, the more it slips away. Now, instead of clinging to the ice, you simply let it go, and in doing so, you free yourself. This is what we must do with our thoughts, with our feelings, and with our attachments. Let them melt away. When you begin to see the impermanence in everything, you start to live with more gratitude. You realize that nothing lasts forever, and that includes the hard times. Just as the good moments come and go, so do the bad. This realization gives you peace, because you no longer fear change. You embrace it. Think about your life right now. You may be holding on to something that no longer serves you, whether it's a person, a situation, or even a thought. The more you hold on, the more it weighs you down. Now, what if you could just let go? What if you could embrace the flow of life, knowing that everything, both good and bad, will eventually pass? This understanding of impermanence doesn't mean we stop caring. It means that we stop attaching ourselves to the idea that things should never change. We can love, we can care, we can be involved in the world, but we do so with the understanding that everything is temporary. The beauty of this understanding is that it frees you from the burden of attachment. You no longer have to worry about losing what you love, because you know that nothing is permanent. You don't need to hold on tightly to anything or anyone because you understand that life is always in motion, and that's okay. In Buddhism, this is often called the practice of non-attachment. It's not about not caring. It's about being able to experience life fully without letting it control you. It's about enjoying each moment as it comes, without worrying about the future or regretting the past. When you let go of attachment, you allow yourself to live freely, without the weight of worry. When you accept impermanence, you become more resilient. You no longer crumble when things change or when you lose something. You learn to adapt, to flow with the changes, to find peace in the constant movement of life. The Buddhist teachings on impermanence are not meant to make us feel sad or fearful, but to free us. They remind us that life is precious precisely because it is fleeting. When you understand this, you stop taking things for granted. You begin to live with more presence, more appreciation, and more joy. By embracing impermanence, you let go of the heavy burdens of overthinking, clinging, and worrying. You stop trying to control everything and start flowing with life. And in this flow, you find peace. Next time you feel yourself overthinking or clinging to something or someone, remember the river. The water is always moving, never the same. Let go, allow the thoughts to pass, and be free. Compassion without clinging. In Buddhism, compassion is not just about feeling sorry for someone or giving them help out of pity. True compassion goes much deeper. It's about understanding the suffering of others and wishing for their happiness without expecting anything in return. But here's the key. You must also learn not to cling to that compassion. If you become attached to helping someone, or if you expect them to show gratitude in return, then your compassion becomes just another form of attachment, and it can lead to frustration and disappointment. Imagine you are helping a friend who is going through a tough time. You listen to them, you offer support, and you try your best to make them feel better. But what if, after all of that, they never show appreciation? What if they even take your kindness for granted? How do you feel? Angry? Disappointed? Frustrated? If these feelings arise, it's because your compassion has turned into attachment. You've clung to an expectation of how the other person should respond, and when they don't meet those expectations, you suffer. This is where Buddhist teachings on compassion and detachment come into play. Buddhism teaches that compassion should be unconditional. It's not about seeking validation or recognition for your kindness. Compassion is a natural response to the suffering of others, not a tool for building your ego or getting something in return. Think about the Bodhisattvas in Buddhism. These are enlightened beings who have chosen to remain in the world and help others achieve enlightenment. They do so not because they want to be praised or admired, but because their compassion is limitless. They give without attachment, and they are not disturbed by the lack of gratitude or acknowledgement from others. Their compassion is pure, like the rain falling on the earth, nourishing everything without asking for anything in return. To truly practice compassion without clinging, you must free yourself from expectations. When you give, give freely. When you help, help selflessly. And when you do something kind, do it without any need for recognition. This doesn't mean you should ignore your own well-being, but it means that your focus should be on the act of giving, not on how the recipient reacts. The teachings of the Buddha emphasize that the root of suffering is attachment, and this applies to compassion as well. If you expect others to behave in a certain way because of your kindness, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. But if you give without expectation, your compassion becomes a source of true peace and joy. Take a moment to reflect. When you've helped others in the past, how often did you expect something in return? Even if it was just a thank you or a feeling of satisfaction, when you can release these expectations, your heart becomes freer, and your ability to help others grows stronger. Compassion without clinging is liberating. It allows you to give without fear of rejection or disappointment. Let's take a look at the story of the Buddha and the woman named Kisagami. Kisagami had lost her young child, and in her grief, she went to the Buddha, asking him to bring her child back to life. The Buddha, with his infinite wisdom, did not directly offer her the answer she sought. Instead, he told her to find a mustard seed from a house that had never experienced death. She searched high and low, but no house was without death. In the end, Kisagami realized that death is a universal experience, and her grief, though deep, was not unique. Through this realization, she found peace. This story highlights that true compassion involves understanding the nature of suffering in all beings. It's not about clinging to the idea that others should live forever, or that they should never experience pain. Compassion comes from acknowledging the impermanence of life and accepting it, without trying to control or hold onto outcomes. The Buddha also taught that compassion should be extended not just to those we like, but to all beings, including those who may have wronged us. This is one of the most powerful aspects of Buddhist compassion. It's not about selecting who deserves our kindness. It's about offering our compassion to everyone, regardless of their actions toward us. When you can practice this kind of unconditional compassion, you begin to see the world differently. Instead of being caught up in judgments or expectations, you become a source of peace and healing for others. Your kindness is not dependent on how people treat you, but on your own capacity to give. But how do we cultivate compassion without clinging? One powerful practice in Buddhism is the meditation on metta, also known as loving-kindness meditation. In this practice, you focus on sending love and kindness to all beings, starting with yourself and gradually expanding to others. The key here is to send this love without any expectation of receiving something in return. It's an act of pure giving, and through this, you begin to let go of the need for anything back. As you practice metta, you'll start to notice that your heart opens up more easily. You become less attached to outcomes and more connected to the simple joy of giving. Compassion becomes not something you do, but something you are. Another way to practice compassion without clinging is by regularly reflecting on the impermanence of life. By understanding that everything changes, we can learn not to hold on to people, situations, or outcomes. This doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we accept that things will not always go the way we want, and we allow ourselves to release our attachment to specific outcomes. This practice of letting go brings freedom, not just for the person you're helping, but for yourself as well. When you give without expectation, you're not bound by the results. You can give with a peaceful heart, knowing that your actions are based on kindness, not on what you hope to receive in return. True compassion is liberating because it frees both the giver and the receiver from the burden of expectations. It allows you to help others without getting caught up in resentment, disappointment, or frustration. And it gives you the peace of mind that comes from knowing that your kindness is genuine, not motivated by any hidden agenda. So, how can you start practicing compassion without clinging today? It starts with the smallest acts of kindness. whether it's offering a smile, listening attentively to someone, or helping a friend in need. As you practice, notice when you start to attach expectations to your actions. Maybe you're hoping for a thank you, or for them to return the favor. When you notice this, gently let go of the expectation and focus on the act of giving itself. In this way, compassion becomes a way of life. It becomes natural, effortless, and free of attachment. And as you cultivate this kind of compassion, not only will you bring peace to others, but you will also find a deeper sense of inner peace within yourself. The role of meditation in overcoming overthinking. Overthinking is something we all experience. It's that moment when your mind races in circles, spiraling from one thought to the next without any rest. You can't seem to quiet your mind, and you feel stuck in a cycle that keeps you from moving forward. But there is a simple, powerful solution to this problem: meditation. Meditation is like a reset button for your mind. Think of it as the process of untangling a knot in a rope. When you first sit down to meditate, your thoughts might seem wild, like a messy ball of yarn. But with practice, you begin to separate and untangle those thoughts, slowly gaining control over them rather than being controlled by them. Meditation teaches you to step back from the chaos and observe your thoughts without getting lost in them. One of the most profound teachings in Buddhism is mindfulness, the art of being fully present in the moment. When you meditate, you focus on your breath, on the sensations in your body, or even on the sounds around you. This simple act of focusing your attention on one thing allows you to break free from the constant stream of thoughts that dominate your mind. And in this space of mindfulness, overthinking begins to lose its power. But meditation is not just about clearing the mind. It's also about accepting the thoughts that arise without judgment. In Buddhist practice, this is known as non-attachment. Thoughts come and go, just like clouds in the sky. You can't stop them from appearing, but you don't have to cling to them either. When you sit in meditation, you learn to let your thoughts pass by without grabbing onto them. Over time, this becomes a habit, and you start to live more in the present moment instead of being trapped in the past or the future. Think of meditation as a space where you train your mind to be still. In the same way that a strong wind can scatter leaves across the ground, a busy mind scatters your attention and energy. But through regular meditation, you learn to calm that wind and regain control over your focus. Your thoughts no longer push you around. Instead, you begin to choose where to direct your energy. One of the main reasons overthinking happens is that we don't give ourselves the time and space to stop and breathe. Life is fast-paced, and we're always thinking about what comes next. But meditation teaches us to slow down and be present in the here and now. It's not about eliminating thoughts entirely, but about creating a gap between them. In that gap, you find peace. Start with just a few minutes a day. Find a quiet spot, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. If your mind starts to wander, that's okay. Gently bring your focus back to your breathing, without judgment or frustration. Over time, your ability to quiet the mind will improve, and you'll notice that overthinking becomes less of a problem. Another important aspect of meditation in overcoming overthinking is the concept of impermanence, a core teaching in Buddhism. Everything is temporary, even our thoughts. When you meditate, you begin to understand that the thoughts you're struggling with right now will eventually pass. Just as clouds float by in the sky, your thoughts will drift away. In meditation, you learn to let go of the need to hold on to these thoughts, and you start to embrace the flow of life as it is. This insight into impermanence helps break the habit of overthinking. When you realize that your thoughts and worries are fleeting, you no longer feel the need to grasp onto them. Instead, you begin to trust that whatever is troubling you will pass in its own time, just like all things in life. Meditation also teaches you self-compassion. It's easy to get caught up in self-criticism when you're overthinking, especially when you believe you should have acted differently or said something better. But in meditation, you learn to accept yourself just as you are. You allow yourself the grace to simply be present, without the constant need to analyze or judge your actions. In Buddhism, there is a practice called metta, or loving-kindness meditation. This practice involves sending thoughts of love and goodwill to yourself and others. It helps you create a sense of warmth and compassion, both for yourself and for those you might be overthinking about. Through loving-kindness, you begin to let go of negative thoughts and replace them with positive, uplifting intentions. As you continue to meditate, you will notice that your ability to deal with overthinking improves. Your mind becomes clearer, your emotions more balanced, and your ability to stay present in the moment strengthens. Meditation doesn't just help you with overthinking. It helps you build a deeper connection to yourself and to the world around you. But don't expect instant results. Meditation is a practice, and like any practice, it takes time. Just as you wouldn't expect to master a musical instrument overnight, you can't expect to quiet your mind in one session. But with consistent effort, you will see the changes. You'll notice moments of stillness amidst the chaos, and over time, those moments will become more frequent and longer lasting. There's no perfect way to meditate. It's not about achieving some enlightened state. It's about showing up for yourself, sitting with your thoughts, and learning to be with them without reacting to them. Through meditation, you develop the wisdom to recognize which thoughts are worth your attention and which ones can simply pass by. If you ever feel frustrated with meditation, remember this. Overthinking is a habit, and breaking a habit takes time and patience. You are training your mind, just as an athlete trains their body. Every time you sit down to meditate, you are strengthening your ability to manage your thoughts. Ultimately, meditation offers a way to free yourself from the tyranny of overthinking. It helps you return to the simplicity of the present moment, where peace, clarity, and insight reside. And in this space, you can begin to let go of the endless mental chatter that holds you back. So, if overthinking is something that holds you down, give meditation a try. Start small, and with time, you will begin to notice the changes. Your mind will grow quieter, your focus sharper, and your life richer. In the end, meditation isn't just about overcoming overthinking. It's about embracing life as it is, with all its beauty, impermanence, and peace. Wisdom from Buddhist Sutras on emotional balance. Imagine for a moment that you are a still pond. The water is calm, serene, and clear. Now, imagine someone throws a stone into the pond. What happens? The water ripples, and the once clear surface becomes disturbed. You may not see clearly what lies beneath the surface for a while, but eventually, with time, the water settles, and peace returns. Our emotions are much like that pond. In our day-to-day lives, we often encounter disturbances, people's words, events, and situations that trigger strong reactions in us. These disturbances can cloud our mind, causing confusion and making us lose touch with the calmness within. But just like the pond, the mind can return to clarity and peace. This is where the wisdom from Buddhist sutras comes in. Buddhism teaches us that emotions, while natural, can be fleeting. They are like the ripples in the pond, temporary and ever-changing. The key is not to let these emotions define us or control our actions. Instead, we are encouraged to develop awareness and observe these emotions without getting caught up in them. The Buddhist sutras, particularly those focusing on mindfulness and meditation, offer profound guidance in balancing our emotions. One of the most famous teachings comes from the Dhammapada, which states, "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world." This powerful line reminds us that our thoughts shape our emotions. If we constantly think negative thoughts or dwell on things outside of our control, it will inevitably affect our emotional state. In the same way, if we nurture thoughts of kindness, compassion, and understanding, our emotional state becomes more balanced and peaceful. The emotions we experience are often reflections of the thoughts we hold in our minds. The challenge is to recognize these patterns and break free from them. Buddhist teachings on right mindfulness provide another layer of wisdom when it comes to emotional balance. Right mindfulness, or sammasati, is the practice of being fully aware of what is happening in the present moment. When we are mindful, we can observe our emotions without judgment, without the need to react. We can simply acknowledge that we feel anger, frustration, sadness, or joy, but we don't need to become those emotions. Imagine walking in a forest, observing a tree. You notice the shape of its branches, the texture of its bark, and the colors of its leaves. You do not try to change the tree or judge it. You simply observe it. In the same way, when we practice mindfulness, we learn to observe our emotions as they arise without clinging to them or trying to push them away. This observation allows us to create space between the emotion and our reaction, giving us the opportunity to choose how we respond. The Buddha also taught that the mind, like the body, needs training. Just as we go to the gym to strengthen our muscles, we practice meditation and mindfulness to strengthen our minds. Through this mental training, we can build emotional resilience. When we are trained in mindfulness, we develop the ability to face difficult emotions with a calm and clear mind. We don't let them overwhelm us or control our actions. In the Satipatthana Sutta, one of the most important Buddhist scriptures on mindfulness, the Buddha lays out a path to understanding and observing our emotions. The first step is simply to acknowledge what we are feeling in the present moment. If we feel anger, for instance, we observe the sensation of anger in our body, perhaps a tightening in the chest or a rising heat in the face. We do not judge these sensations as good or bad. We simply acknowledge their presence. This is the first step in reclaiming emotional balance, awareness. The second step is to reflect on the impermanence of emotions. Emotions do not last forever. Just as the weather changes, so do our emotional states. Understanding that emotions are temporary helps us detach from them. If we can see that anger, sadness, or even joy will eventually pass, we don't have to cling to them or act on them impulsively. We can simply ride the wave of emotion until it settles. In the Anapanasati Sutta, another key teaching of the Buddha, the practice of mindful breathing is introduced as a tool to calm the mind and regulate emotions. By focusing on the breath, we anchor ourselves in the present moment. When we feel overwhelmed by our emotions, we can return to the breath. Breathing deeply and slowly sends signals to the body to relax, and in turn, this helps the mind to settle. With consistent practice, we learn to respond to emotional disturbances with a calm and steady mind. One powerful way Buddhism teaches us to balance emotions is through the practice of loving kindness, metta. Loving kindness meditation encourages us to cultivate compassion for ourselves and others, even those who may have caused us harm. When we develop a heart full of compassion, our emotional reactions are less likely to be driven by anger or resentment. Instead, we naturally respond with kindness, patience, and understanding. Loving kindness allows us to release the heavy burden of negative emotions and create space for peace and harmony. Through the wisdom of the Buddhist sutras, we also learn that we are not our emotions. The emotions are simply experiences that arise in the mind, much like thoughts. But just as we are not our thoughts, we are not our emotions. This understanding helps us create a distance between ourselves and our emotional reactions, preventing us from being controlled by them. The Buddha often compared our attachment to emotions to a person holding onto a burning coal. If we hold onto the coal, it will burn us. But if we let go, we are free from the pain. Buddhism also teaches us that emotional balance is not about suppressing or avoiding our feelings. It's about understanding them, experiencing them fully, and letting them go. Emotions are like clouds in the sky. They come and go. When we allow them to pass without clinging to them, we return to a state of inner peace. It is through this practice of non-attachment that we can maintain emotional balance. Finally, the middle way, a central teaching of Buddhism, offers valuable insight into emotional balance. The middle way encourages us to avoid extremes, to neither repress our emotions nor be consumed by them. It teaches us to find a balanced approach to life and emotions, where we acknowledge and feel our emotions, but do not let them dictate our actions. This path of moderation allows us to experience life's ups and downs with equanimity, maintaining peace even in challenging situations. Incorporating the wisdom from these sutras into our daily lives helps us achieve emotional balance. Through mindfulness, loving kindness, and the understanding of impermanence, we can navigate the waves of emotion with grace and composure. The more we practice, the more we cultivate a peaceful mind, free from the turbulence of overthinking and emotional distress. As you continue on your journey, remember that emotional balance is a lifelong practice. It's not about perfection, but about progress. The more we apply these teachings, the more naturally we'll return to that still pond of calm within ourselves, no matter what life throws our way. Transforming overthinking into mindful action. Overthinking can feel like a storm inside your mind, spinning around in circles with no way out. It clouds your judgment, steals your peace, and makes it almost impossible to take action. But what if I told you that overthinking doesn't have to paralyze you? What if, instead of being a roadblock, it could become the fuel that drives you toward positive, mindful action. First, let's take a step back and understand why overthinking happens in the first place. At its core, overthinking is a result of fear, uncertainty, or the need for control. We overanalyze situations because we want to predict outcomes, avoid mistakes, or protect ourselves from harm. But here's the catch: life is unpredictable. And trying to control every single thought and decision only leads to exhaustion and confusion. In Buddhism, there is a key principle called right intention. This is part of the Eightfold Path, and it teaches us to set clear, positive intentions before we act. When our thoughts become scattered and filled with doubt, we lose our ability to act with clarity. Overthinking becomes a distraction from our true intention, and it keeps us trapped in a cycle of inaction. But how do we break this cycle? How do we transform overthinking into mindful action? It starts with awareness. The first step in transforming overthinking is to become aware of it. When you find yourself spiraling into endless thoughts about what could go wrong or what has already happened, pause. Take a deep breath. Recognize that these thoughts are not facts. They are just mental patterns. Once you become aware of the overthinking, you can step back and give yourself the space to choose a different response. This brings us to the second step: grounding yourself in the present moment. When you're stuck in your head, you're often thinking about the past or worrying about the future. But neither of these exist right now. The present moment is all that is real. Grounding yourself in the here and now can help you break free from the mental noise. A simple practice to do this is mindful breathing. Focus on each breath as it enters and leaves your body. Feel the sensations in your chest, your stomach, your nostrils. This simple act of paying attention to your breath brings you back to the present, where overthinking can't take hold. You'll find that as you focus on your breath, your mind becomes quieter and your actions clearer. Once you've anchored yourself in the present, you can now begin to take mindful action. Instead of getting lost in the what-ifs of every situation, focus on what is within your control. What can you do right now, in this moment, to move forward? For example, if you're overthinking a difficult conversation with someone, don't get stuck in thoughts about how it might go wrong. Instead, focus on your intention. What do you want to achieve in this conversation? Do you want understanding, connection, or resolution? When you know your intention, it's easier to act without overthinking. Another powerful way to transform overthinking is through non-attachment. In Buddhism, non-attachment means letting go of the need for a specific outcome and simply being open to whatever arises. When we are attached to a particular outcome, we often overthink how to get there, fearing failure or rejection. But when we release our attachment, we allow ourselves to take action without the burden of expectation. Think about a time when you were truly present and focused. Maybe you were doing something simple, like cooking or walking, and you were so immersed in the activity that time seemed to disappear. There was no overthinking in that moment, only action. This is the power of mindfulness. When we act with intention and presence, overthinking no longer holds us back. So how can we practice this in our daily lives? Here are some simple ways to turn overthinking into mindful action. Start with small steps. If you're feeling overwhelmed by a big task, break it down into smaller, manageable pieces. Focus on one step at a time, and don't worry about the whole picture. Each small step is progress. Trust your instincts. Overthinking often comes from a lack of trust in ourselves. But deep down, we all have the wisdom to know what's right for us. Trust your gut feelings and intuition to guide your decisions. Let go of perfectionism. Perfectionism is often at the heart of overthinking. We get so caught up in trying to do things perfectly that we never take action. Remember, progress is more important than perfection. Do your best, and then move forward. Take time for reflection. In the Buddhist tradition, reflection is key to understanding our thoughts and actions. Set aside time each day to reflect on your intentions and actions. This helps you gain clarity and adjust course if needed. Practice compassion for yourself. Overthinking can be harsh. We often judge ourselves for our thoughts, as if they define who we are. But remember, you are not your thoughts. Be kind to yourself and understand that it's okay to make mistakes. Treat yourself with the same compassion you would offer a friend. As you begin to take action with mindfulness, you'll notice that overthinking loses its grip on you. You'll still have thoughts, but they won't control your behavior. Your actions will come from a place of clarity, peace, and purpose. Ultimately, the key to transforming overthinking into mindful action is rooted in the present moment. When we stop trying to predict the future or dwell on the past, we can act with a calm, focused mind. And with each mindful action, you build momentum, breaking free from the cycle of overthinking and moving forward with purpose and confidence. So the next time you catch yourself overthinking, remember, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what can I do right now to move forward? Transform your overthinking into mindful action, and watch how it leads you to a more peaceful and fulfilling life. Embracing a life of peace and freedom. As we come to the end of this journey, let me ask you, how much of your life has been spent trapped in your own thoughts? How often have you carried the weight of worries, regrets, and imagined scenarios? Then what would it feel like to finally let it all go and embrace a life of peace and freedom? Overthinking, attachment, and clinging to thoughts about others are habits we've all fallen into. They're part of being human, but the teachings of Buddhism remind us of something powerful. We are not our thoughts. Thoughts come and go, like clouds in the sky. They are not permanent, and they don't define who we are. When we stop identifying with our thoughts, we begin to experience life as it truly is, free, flowing, and full of possibilities. Let's reflect for a moment on what we've learned. At the heart of overthinking lies attachment, our need to control, to find certainty, or to seek happiness outside of ourselves. But Buddhism teaches us that true freedom comes not from control, but from letting go. When we release our attachments and accept life as it is, we free ourselves from the chains of overthinking. Now, you might wonder, how do I truly let go? It starts with awareness. You've heard this throughout the series. Awareness is the key to transformation. When you become aware of your thoughts, you create space between you and them. This space allows you to respond, not react. It gives you the freedom to choose peace over worry. Once you've cultivated awareness, the next step is acceptance. Life is unpredictable. People will come and go, situations will change, and not everything will go the way you want. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means embracing reality without resistance. It's the foundation of inner peace. Here's a simple example. Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you grip, the more sand slips through your fingers. But if you hold it gently, the sand stays in your palm. Life is like that. The more we cling, the more we lose. But when we hold life lightly, with acceptance and ease, we experience its fullness without the pain of overthinking. The final step is action. Mindful, intentional action. Letting go doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting from a place of clarity and calm. When your mind is free from unnecessary thoughts, you can focus on what truly matters. Whether it's nurturing relationships, pursuing your passions, or simply enjoying the present moment, your actions become aligned with your deepest values. But let's not forget the power of compassion, both for yourself and others. Overthinking often stems from judgment and fear. We judge ourselves for not being good enough, or we fear what others might think. Compassion dissolves these barriers. It reminds us that we're all imperfect, all learning, all connected. When you approach yourself and others with kindness, overthinking naturally softens, and peace takes its place. As a Zen master, I'll share with you one last teaching, a story from the Buddha's life. One day, the Buddha and his disciples came across a river. The water was muddy and turbulent, and the disciples hesitated to cross. The Buddha smiled and said, "Be like the river, flow, without clinging to the mud or resisting the current. When the water flows freely, it becomes clear. This is the essence of a peaceful life. Flow with the present moment, without clinging to the past or resisting the future. When you stop overthinking, you allow life to unfold naturally. You trust the process, knowing that everything is impermanent and constantly changing." And now, as we close this series, I want to leave you with one final practice: gratitude. Overthinking often focuses on what we lack or fear. Gratitude shifts your focus to what you have. Each day, take a moment to reflect on something you're grateful for. Whether it's a kind word, a beautiful sunset, or simply the breath in your lungs. Gratitude grounds you in the present and fills your heart with peace. Before we end, let me say this. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of viewers subscribe. So if this series has helped you in any way, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Woven. Your support means the world to us and helps us continue sharing insights that inspire and transform lives. As you step away from this video, remember that peace is not something you chase, it's something you cultivate within yourself. Each moment is an opportunity to let go, to breathe, and to embrace the freedom that comes from living mindfully. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you find the courage to let go, the wisdom to embrace life as it is, and the peace that comes from a heart free of overthinking. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a new way of being. Take this wisdom with you, and may it guide you to a life of clarity, joy, and freedom.